Pas qu'on bouge?
Ah, ça y est, c'est parti.
Buongiorno a tutti. Stiamo insieme per 20 minuti. I switch in English. Was my Italian training. So we are very pleased to be with you today and to have a conversation with Xavier about experience design. And I know that the audience is quite large. Could be professional, could be students, could be people who are looking to find how to do innovation for the future. So we will dedicate this time to have this kind of conversation with my friend and the design strategist of Pininfarina, Xavier.
Good afternoon.
Myself, I'm David Cavallo, and I'm the head of everything related to experience design within Pininfarina. Xavier, can you introduce yourself?
Yes. Hi, everyone. I'm Xavier Baudrier. I'm in charge of design strategy at Pininfarina. And yes, living in Italy for 3 years.
So we prepare like a plan to speak about how to do, human-centric design and how this approach is very strategic at this time. And we will give you, all the bases we have, all the thoughts we have, and all the things we do. And I think you can start, Xavier, with everything to qualify the experience.
Sure. So let me start with talking about like emotions. So you know that every product or service that we use can create emotions, positive or negative, or maybe they don't create any emotions. But what is important is that when a product is creating or a service that we use is creating an emotion, what we tend to remember is actually the emotion that we got rather than the actual experience that we got, that we had. So just to give you an example, which is not from our turf, maybe I read a book or I saw a movie that I remember well. I remember the emotion that I got. So I remember that I liked this particular book or this particular movie, but I don't remember well the plot. That's exactly the point. So we remember more the emotions than actually what created these emotions. And why is this important? And it is important because once I have like a positive emotion with a product or service, this is going to translate into something positive for the business behind it. And by business, let me open it up a bit and see what I mean. So as a design house, we're not working for ourselves. So we're not artists designing for ourselves. We're designing for clients. These clients, in majority, they will be private companies. And if we manage to create products and services that drive positive emotions, this will translate for our clients into maybe revenue, into increased loyalty, into improved net promoter score, whatever could be the metric. But we are also working for public institutions or public bodies. For them, I mean, the measure will be different. It will be more in the sense of, in terms of public good. So maybe if we create positive emotions, we will drive behavioral change. We will lead people to maybe like embrace more openly the use of public transportations or the use of personal transportation, such as bicycling, that would be more friendly for the environment, or would lead people to be more willing to recycle their garbages. So this is like why creating positive emotions is like so important. And we do this by creating experiences. So I was talking about the experience that I had of a book, of a movie. Our business is about designing experiences. But before we go there, I would like to give like the floor back to David and ask you, David, if you could elaborate a bit on what are the levers that we can play with to create these positive emotions. What are they, and how do we do this?
Exactly. You mentioned we are not artists because let's say that we come from industrial background, and we know that everything in industry need to be measured, processes, and we need to have this very rational way to do things, to take decision, to follow a process, quality, and then we becomes like a function within the overall system. So this rational way to do it and to do innovation, sometimes we miss the point because we are so much into this technical approach that sometimes it's very hard to come back on how the user and how the consumer have this feeling and this connection with the service. So that's why we are very challenged as a designer in the future in order to simulate and to create this appealing, this emotion part, just like you explained, Xavier. That's why we believe, and that's why Pininfarina is for sure a key player there, because I think we should combine a wide balance between to be an artist and to be an engineer or a scientist. And on the design thinking process, we need to empathize like a friend. We should create, of course, like a designer, but also we should also, take some risk and do things as an entrepreneur, and probably measure at the end and test as a scientist. And I think all this combination of know-how is quite very challenging. And I think we should look at all these artists, between brackets. Let's say that all these great cookers, painters, sculptors, copywriters, screening writer, or a novelist, because for centuries they have this process. They know how to tell a story, and we need to involve them in order to script the story, to script this experience, because thanks to the new technology of today, we have the capability to script this, and thanks to sensor to activate this. So that's why we need to enlarge our skills, to open up even more, and to learn a lot about this process of creation, and I think also about the game industry. They have this maturity to combine the sophistication of an imaginary connected to a brand, because the brand need to convey some values, but also to make a connection, to create this emotional. I've learned, for a few years back, that if we have no emotion, we can't take any decision. So our ability to take decision is very connected on how we have this feeling, because when we are facing an experience, we have both our heart and our brain who is working. First, you sense with your senses. So with your body, you have this connection with your environment. And then these feelings, activate your brain, and you make many connections. Then you have some ideas, and then you take a decision. So the more you are mastering all this environment, the more you are in connection, you are in relationship with the user or the consumer, the more you maximize the chance to be aligned with a decision making that can suit. What do you think, Xavier, about this?
No, absolutely. I think maybe one thing that I would like to add is that so when we talk about playing with the senses, so definitely we can play with all the senses, but we can also play with cognition. So and this is one aspect that I find very intriguing, is that you can play with the elements of surprise that you can create, that actually will create this strong imprint in one's memory. Because you were exposed to something that you did not expect, maybe through your senses, but then it activates something in your brain, and then you start wondering. And as we were discussing, preparing for this webinar, I was giving the example of Northern Lights. I lived for 20 years in Finland, and I had the chance there to see for myself Northern Lights. And Northern Lights are something which is absolutely amazing, because it's completely immaterial. So you don't really know what you see. You cannot predict. It comes and goes. It changes, and it's impossible to recall, to have one precise picture of what it was, and you only experience it through the eyes. It's complete silence. But this questioning that it creates is actually something that creates a fantastic emotion that sticks in your heart. For years. So the last one that I saw was probably 5 or 6 years back, and it is still as if it was yesterday.
So now let's come back to in a moment with connect to business in this capability to create value. Yeah. At this time, I think we are all probably facing the fact that with this crisis, we are questioning a lot on how we are going to do business in the future, right? And how we are going to design things, and how we can reconnect with a kind of a certain normality in order to behave like we used to do in the past, but at the same time, they keep the good parts of it, right? And of course, people are still the fear to go outside and probably to make things like they used to do. And all the companies have to probably to invest, or they have to think about the kind of things they have to change in the future in order to avoid to face this risk again, and to have the kind of issue we went through. And you know probably the S curve. You know this S curve growth innovation, when you have to combine, you know, a combination of S curve in order to have a constant growth, you know, a fluid, seamless. At least this is ideal. And when you are in the beginning of a curve, it's you are creating a new business, right? You have an idea, and then you want to you don't know how to make this idea happen, right? And you need to test, you need to investigate from many points of view. Perhaps you can tell a bit more about this with one of our customer about this startup for hydroponic device, right?
Yes. So, I mean, I think this is a very good example that we've been working on recently, and that we're actually still continuing working with, is the case of a company that came to us with an idea of an hydroponic indoor farming solution. And when they came to us, I mean, the idea was there, but it was not mature yet. So what we helped this customer do was to actually explore what they could do with this idea. What kind of, first, I mean, to whom they could sell. So, I mean, who could be the target audience for this idea? Then, in turn, what kind of product it would lead to, what kind of product experience it would create, and it would be apt and adequate for these particular target audiences. But then, in turn, it's not only the product experience, but if I have like different products, probably I will like sell them and serve them differently. So we explored this thing. We gave it like a tangible representation in form of what we call like experience movies, which we use to actually evaluate a bit our intuition and early ideas with real people that would belong more or less to the target segments that we defined. And that's informed us in terms of, well, what are like the scenarios that we feel are actually the ones that this company, in terms of a business case behind it, could support. So in terms of the operating OPEX structure, CAPEX structure, partnerships to be secured, time to market, and so on and so forth. And then, I mean, we took it like in the second round, and then, I mean, go gradually deeper into the definition of the not only the object itself, but the service around it. And then, I mean, again, I mean, the marketing layers around it. That's one example.
So this is sort of the beginning of the S curve. So when you invest on a new idea, but you don't know where it's going on, and you are very not secure on the fact of or to secure the success of this idea, right? So we use all this storytelling and the prototyping capabilities from the design thinking of our process in order to move on and to get more and more mature. And so we reach a point on this S curve where you start to grow, okay? You are not like on the top, but you are already, you know, kind of growing. So you did a lot of research, you did a lot of intensive prototyping, you have the right partners, so you feel comfortable about the price and the cost of your solution, you feel it's competitive, and it's bridging something very new and what people are expecting. But then you are lacking probably this kind of personality or character, or to make an iconic design. So here also we can work with you and with our partners in order to make this happen. So we can create forerunners, you can leverage the brand of Pininfarina, and we can help you to find the quintessence of this idea in order to shape it and to do it in order to magnify and to have a good balance, elegancy on the way you combine the physical product, the way you combine the different functions, the way you shape it and you create a strong identity. And then we can also work on the UX design and of the experience design, the overall, you know, consistency of the message in order to make even better this connection, to have a clear message. And then at the end of this S curve, you are growing. And just to give you an example about this, we work with La Maison Abordable, which is in French. In English, it's affordable house. And we we benefit this it's offsite, construction, building construction. It's prefab manufacturers, housing modules and house modules, and then thanks to all the know-how we have in automotive industry, aerospace, yachting, so we manage to make the combination of these techniques to even improve the manufacturing and remove this kind of utility or a boxy effect in order to shape this to look like less technical and much more sexy. So next is when you have a successful product. So I think you are making money and everything is working okay, and perhaps you believe that this success is going to be endless. But then this is the moment where you have to think about the new generation of product, and here you have to think about also to initiate kind of a design activity in order to see what's the new technologies, the new techniques, the new behaviors, the new social, demands, the new economical, also expectation and insights in order to change the way you have your routine on, and in order to make something new. And this is the third phase where you need to reinvent yourself. And I believe, Xavier, you have an example here.
Yeah, sure. So the example that I would like to talk about, and it comes from actually the automotive sector, where automotive is a perfect example of this last category of challenges that we typically handle at Pininfarina. It is like that of an industry, automotive, that has been facing in the last year a massive reshuffling of all the elements around it. So the technology is changing massively. We don't need to get into the details, but inside and outside, everything is changing and all creating new possibilities. We have, more important, people, we as users are changing. Our preferences are changing, our behaviors are changing. We are actually carrying these telephones with us all the time, which is part of our lives. I mean, how does this live in a car environment? This is one of the topics of the day. But we also have an aging part of the population, an aging population globally that finds itself challenged by the new cars. And at the same time, we also have on the younger segment of the population that is actually not interested in driving. So we have a whole generation of people that if they take their driving license, they take it super late. So all in all, we have on both sides of the age pyramid, a population that is actually losing the ability to drive, the skills to drive. So this is creating the completely new demands for the automotive industry. Also, we have physical contexts are changing, massive urbanization globally of our societies, and at the same time rural areas within which the use of a car is becoming even more important than ever. A regulatory context that is changing. So cars being chased out of city centers to limit pollution is affecting massively. I mean, the way you look at your powertrains, the very size of the cars, and so on and so forth. But also,
that's why we think about autonomy, right?
No,
when
exactly.
we start this conversation, I remember mid of last year.
Yeah.
So we are struggling on which kind of tool we need to make in order to run this kind of simulation, and also to collect this kind of data in order to create this expressivity of the cockpit to enable this, right, Xavier?
Yeah. So, and indeed, to the point, so I was getting there. So Autonomia is actually a demonstrator that we built for the Geneva Motor Show, which unfortunately was cancelled due to the health situation. And Autonomia is an immersive demonstrator trying to explore what we can do with all these new technologies, from AI to 5G, from the new displays to haptics, from natural gestures to sensors, to actually reinvent the driving experience inside the car. So I really urge you all to check on our social media, on our website. Autonomia was formally launched 2 days ago. And in the coming days, we will be publishing more material and videos about showing actually and explaining that whole experience. Yeah.
So just to finish, because this conversation, it's endless, and I start to be thirsty. So all of that looks very complex. It is complex. but either way, it's involving many layers of know-how, many industries, many activities all together. So of course we can't go through all of this, but we will share you, like in a short time, some over webinars to explain you and detail you each layers and how our job as Pininfarina as a designer, we can involve different experts of the different layers and having this kind of conversation to how to connect this know-how all together in order to facilitate and to create an elegant, melodious, experience in order to have a seamless, experience through the different steps and to coordinate, to synchronize all these layers all together in order to make something, quite unique. And we will tell you about that, later on. But thank you very much. Thank you, Xavier. So like this, you have like a view of the kind of conversation we have in a daily basis with Xavier. And I think it's great for you to participate to this kind of conversation. And we'll be more than happy to have a discussion with you and to look for some collaboration or association in the future. Thank you very much. Thanks, Xavier.
Absolutely. Thanks to all of you. And don't hesitate to ping us. We're here for you. Thanks. Ciao.
Ciao.
Ciao.